Welcome to Cash Chats with me, Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. This is the podcast to help you make the most of your money. Episode 384 is another chance for myself and Amelia Murray to look at the top money stories from the last 7 days. We're looking at things such as how long people are having mortgages for, a new deal from Spotify, and more. And let's get into it, shall we? Amelia, welcome back to the show. What's the first story you want to cover this week?
So there's a lot of fraud. I mean, there is a lot of fraud generally, but there has been some figures released which are showing that there's been a lot of scams on secondhand marketplaces. So in the last 2 years, almost 1 in 3 people have been scammed on, we've got, Depop, Pre-Loved, Shpock. So they've been named as the worst ones for fraud, but there's also been problems on Amazon Marketplace, Gumtree, eBay, Facebook, and Vinted.
Yeah, this is an investigation from Which, isn't it? They talked to lots of people and saw just how prevalent it is. And there was also a similar investigation the last 2 weeks as well from The Guardian, which showed that there's a massive kind of load of Chinese websites that have been set up where they look like you're getting these bargain designer goods, but ultimately you don't. So this kind of scam stuff going on, it's getting worse and worse, isn't it? I mean, how do you know? What are kind of, particularly on those secondhand sites, how do you know something isn't going to be legit?
So it's really difficult. So the most common scam here is when people think they're ordering a legit item from a seller, but they either receive the wrong thing or they don't get anything at all, or they might have something delivered like a box, but it's empty, or they might get counterfeit goods. And I see a lot of this. I'm on a Vinted Facebook group, and there are a lot of complaints about these wrong items. It can also work the other way, where if you're selling something on Vinted, the buyer can then claim that you didn't send them what they ordered and all that kind of thing. And it's really difficult, I guess, like when you do make a complaint to one of these sites, like which way they're going to go and whose side they're going to take, which is something that I see quite a lot on this Facebook group. But I think, I use Vinted and I've never had any problems. But I guess the main thing is you're looking for those legit buyers. Like, have you got people who've got the history? Have they got the reviews? Have they got the ratings? Other sites also work differently with, Facebook Marketplace, for example, was never set up to be a delivery service. It was, you were supposed to find something and then hopefully it was a local seller and you could go check it out and then pay for it in cash. Also keep your conversations within the platform as well as the payment, so that if there is an issue, it can all be kind of viewed by the platform.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you say, and this is a really good thing that we're saying here is like, check the reviews, check people's history, how much they've sold in the past that people like them. But people always start somewhere. I struggle with Airbnb sometimes when you see this. I always check like how many people have used it. Is it a legit listing? But if no one's, if they say it's a new listing, everything's got to be a new listing at some point. So just be careful with those stuff when they are new listings. Be really, really sort of sure that you feel like it is legitimate. Another handy tip you can do here as well: if it looks like stock footage, stock photo, it's probably not legit. Because if we're selling stuff ourselves, we'll take a photo of it and we'll upload it. It's not hard to do it, and even then you can do a reverse image search. Have you ever done that on Google?
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of like see, has it picked up anywhere else that actually someone's just getting taken looks like a normal picture, like someone's taken, but they've stolen that as well. So that's another kind of sign that there could be fraud going on.
Yeah, and if you're selling, take photos and videos of what you're sending and packing. I mean, it sounds like a lot of effort to go to, doesn't it? And the figures were, it was 1 in 3 people have been scammed on these sites in the past 2 years. So it's significant, but it's not everyone. But I think just err on the side of caution with this. And try and take as much evidence as you can when you're doing it.
Yeah, and I think also it's that classic, isn't it? But is it too good to be true? And this particularly, secondhand stuff, maybe you feel like you could get one of these bargains, but particularly on what looks like a legitimate site. Again, those fake sites that have been set up largely from China. How many of them, if something is so, pop up in the Google results, if it seems just too ridiculously cheap, then it probably is. And again, do the same things we said: research, see if you can find any reviews, check for all that online safety stuff. If it costs more than £100, pay with your credit card just to get that extra consumer protection. But it's be really careful. Now, this isn't the only scammer story we've got this week. What's up next, Amelia?
So we have the FCA is alleging that between the 19th of May 2018 and the 13th of April 2021, some influencers, like some from TV, like famous people, have been involved in promoting a high risk investments when they shouldn't be. So it seemed to start off, there's not that much information at the moment, but it seems to start off with two of these influencers, Emmanuel Nwanzi and Holly Thompson, using an Instagram account to provide advice on buying and selling these high risk investments when they weren't authorized to do so. Now, the FCA, with these investments, they're saying these are so high risk, like 80% of people who get involved with them lose money. So it started there, and then they got other influencers, paid them to start promoting them from their Instagram accounts, talking about, millions of followers. And the people who've got involved are kind of surprising. So Lauren Goodger from Towie, and then others from Love Island and Geordie Shore, who I'm not familiar with, but other people will be. And basically the 9 of them have been ordered to court in June, and if convicted, they could face fines and up to 2 years in prison.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good example of sharing this to remind people just to be really careful where you are getting your financial advice from. And the word advice is this weird thing in our world, isn't it? Really, you and I could sort of say, oh, here's some advice. We can't use the word advice because it's about things like investing and pensions and mortgages. That's the kind of stuff where you do need a qualification to properly tell people about specific products. And so many people out there are doing it, and some people are doing it out of the goodness of their own heart, and they're really passionate about it, and they do have a real want to help people. But there are people out there who are trying to make a quick buck and really irresponsible with this. I think the real message from this is, with anyone, wherever you get your information, including us when we talk about stuff, if you don't understand what we're saying, then wait until you do understand it. And that means doing your own research, or going to more established sources, or maybe seeking financial advice for some of those kind of, if you've got enough money, you're looking at investing it, or moving your pensions, or trying to find that kind of mortgage that's right for you. Because there's protections in place if you go via that regulated route. It's easy to see quite how, with the amount of money that was going around here, 4.5 million combined following, a lot of money being changed hands with this particular case. And it's not going to be an isolated example.
Yeah, I kind of have a rule when it comes to celebrities and endorsement. I'm not going near you if it's to do with money or to do with health. It's sort of like a similar thing for me when it's like, around food, exercise, medicine. I'm just like, I'm avoiding. Red flags all over the place.
Yeah, really is, isn't it? That kind of real kind of don't do it. And if anyone's like pressurizing you, even indirectly saying this isn't going to be around for long, or you've got to get in there now, that also is a kind of another red flag. What I thought was interesting as well, AJ Bell shared some figures related to this on some previous research they've done, which showed obviously everyone across all age ranges had fallen for these particular sort of scammers, and do get their investing knowledge from social media. But when you go down to sort of younger age groups, it rockets up, so that, they're getting a huge amount of people being targeted who don't have the knowledge, the starting point, and they're finding all this stuff going on. So yeah, it doesn't matter what age you are, be careful of this, but particularly, younger people, do find those other sources for information. Talking of, younger people and money, the next story that we wanted to talk about here was around mortgages, and these figures that show that these kind of ultra long mortgages are becoming more common.
Yeah, especially in young people. So there's been some Bank of England figures that has suggested there's been a surge in mortgages with terms that go beyond state pension age, particularly in new home loans made to under 30s. And it's interesting, I was actually talking to my brother about this on Sunday, and he said he extended, when he applied for a mortgage and he's in his 30s, he went for a longer term, which by my calculation won't take him beyond state pension age, but it was a surprise to me. And so his experience was, me and him owned a flat together. He would suddenly have to take care of the mortgage on his own, and the rates had gone up. So he was like, just to give myself some breathing room, I'm going to extend the term for now and see how that goes. And that's kind of been the theme of this. It's, the mortgage rates have gone up. We've got the cost of living crisis. We've got kind of, high inflation. And people are now, when they're buying homes, they're wanting to make their payments as affordable as they can by extending the term. But yeah, it's not always a good long-term plan.
No, because I think, for traditionally a mortgage was 25 years, and that's what I think people would get a 25-year term for their mortgage, and it is this now sort of 30 years becoming far more common, potentially even longer than that. There are some sort of 40-year mortgages out there with some providers, and yeah, it does reduce. You say with your brother, it reduces that monthly payment because you're spreading it out over a longer period, but it will mean you are going to have higher overall interest charges, unless you manage to overpay at some point and bring that down. And there's this research, which was, I think, the former Pensions Minister Steve Webb did a Freedom of Information request, to extend on those initial Bank of England figures to see how it was for the last 3 years. It was that kind of, okay, you get it. You're going to be retired without a main income. You'll have your pension coming in, maybe the state pension as well. But if you've still got that whopping mortgage payment coming out, that's going to make it really, really tough. And either you're going to have to work longer because you can't do it, or sell up and sort of go down something much smaller to try and maybe release that equity. But I'm sure a lot of people aren't thinking about it. They're thinking about what they can do right now. That pressure is still there, isn't it, to get on the property ladder, even though we're doing it later in age on average now. That pressure's still there, and you don't think 30 years in the future. You think about just what's happening over the next few years.
And I mean, I guess to kind of end on, more of the kind of the silver lining is like, just because you commit in the first instance to this longer term, you're kind of probably fixing for 2-5 years, and you can always shorten the term with your next mortgage. If you get a pay rise, or if you're kind of like moving house. So there are kind of ways to like navigate it. So yeah, if it's making it affordable for now, it will be, more expensive in the long term, but you're not fixed for that 30 years. It's kind of like addressing each term as it comes.
Yeah, and actually on that, it's important that if you are overpaying the mortgage, that you make sure it doesn't reduce the term, that it actually reduces your payments, because you want that flexibility in there. As long as you can overpay, and there are obviously fees that come into that quite often, and limits, but you want to make sure that it's not making sure your payments stay the same and it makes it shorter. That flexibility is really key. So I know normally when we do this, there's these price hikes that we're sharing, but we've potentially got a price decrease on the cards, or the potential for price decreases to come along. This is around energy. What's going on here?
Well, yeah, it depends on who you're asking, because there's two sides to this announcement. So the energy market has been a mess for quite a long time now. I can still remember reporting on the surge in tariffs. They doubled kind of within a week. Then all of a sudden, like, all the kind of supplies were going bust. Like, it's been a mad time. And basically, in 2022, there was a ban that was introduced, which meant that suppliers could not sell what is called an acquisition tariff. And that's basically cheap tariffs that only new customers can get. So Ofgem kind of put those rules in place. It was always going to be a temporary measure. And it was due to end March 2025. But now the regulator has said it wants to bring this earlier. So it wants to lift the ban in October, so 6 months earlier. What they're saying it's going to kind of improve competition. It's going to get more people switching if they can kind of go get these better deals as new customers from other suppliers. However, not everyone thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah. So Martin Lewis has been sort of come out and saying, look, this has been campaigning for this for a while. We need this to get some prices down, to get some competition in there, because at the moment no one's really doing it. But then, Octopus have sent a press release out that I saw saying the Del Boy tactics, they call it. And that's the reason why so many companies went bust in the first place. So we don't want to be having this people competing for the bottom for new customers. They should be instead looking for everyone to have lower prices. I mean, they're a business. They're obviously going to be saying that. They're pretty decent. They've always been quite competitive. But I'm sure they don't want to be sort of taking on yet any more customers if they've already got so many as it is. So yeah, but interesting to see what happens here. I mean, yeah, it's still 6 months away where this possibly could come into play. But if it does, then maybe we'll get back to that world where we could, people could save substantial amounts by switching. It used to be a couple of £100 people could get down to. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it does come along. And obviously we'll share that with you guys if it does. I've got a, I've kind of got a price cut for you, Amelia. It's a price cut in one sense, but it's also a bit of a price freeze in another, if you like. And this is Spotify. Shall I tell you about what's going on with Spotify? Go. So I think we sort of shared a few weeks ago that Spotify were hiking prices again, for like the second time in a year. Things were going up. Well, they've now kind of secretly released a cheaper version, and it's called Spotify Basic. And this is £1 cheaper if you're on like the individual paid for one, which was called Spotify Premium. And if you're on Duo, it saves £2 if you get Basic Duo. And if you go to Basic Family from Premium Family, that's also £2 less. So the only difference between Spotify Premium and this new Spotify Basic is you don't get audiobooks. And if you're not worried about audiobooks, then you may as well save some cash. When I say it's not really a price cut, it's like these are the exact same prices it's going back to where we were just like a few weeks ago. So in a sense, you're just avoiding a price hike unless you want audiobooks and you pay more for it. So it's a little bit cheeky, but I'm glad to see it. I'm glad, saving, 24 quid a year because I don't listen to audiobooks.
Yeah, and it's been quite quiet, hasn't it? So you can see it in the account, like, every kind of plan has its basic version. So you can kind of see it in your account if you can see it. But I've seen people on the Facebook group saying that they haven't got access to it yet. So yeah, it's kind of a quiet rollout.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously if you're a new customer, you won't see it at all. It's literally, so I've got Spotify Family. If I go in there, I can see it lets me change to Basic Family from Premium Family, but it won't let me see the other options, those other tiers. And as you say, yeah, not everyone's seen it right now. We have got more information about this over on becleveryourcash.com because so far we're the only people who seem to have written about this. So if you want to get more information, do head over to our site and you'll be able to find out how to do it and what it might mean and some other ways to save money on Spotify. So talking of deals, there's a couple of deals that, you spotted one, I think, really cheeky little deal around free wine. And this is really interesting.
Yeah, I love this story so much. So I love it. So it was basically a company that was testing whether people read the small print in privacy policies. So it was done by a company called Tax Policy Associates. They're a think tank that focuses on tax. And within the small print of their privacy policy, they hid like a free wine offer, basically to test if people read the policy. They put it on the website in February. It took 3 months for anyone to notice. And the person who did notice wasn't like a genuine, keen person who wants to read the privacy policy. They were actually looking to write their own privacy policy. So they were doing their research and trying to find examples. Anyway, and they claimed it and they got the free bottle of wine. And what I love about this is it was a point that the company was trying to make. Basically, every company that holds data has to have a privacy policy. And you could be like a tiny cafe or you could be a charity, and it's all part of, the GDPR rules. And this company was basically like, okay, we have to have them, but do people actually read them? And this was, it proved the point. And what I also love about this is the inspiration for this little trick was apparently the band Van Halen. And apparently they would ask for a bowl of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed as part of their rider. And it was to check whether people were like their producer or kind of like, I guess like promoters were checking the details, because often when they were like, doing stage shows or whatever, they had quite technical requirements. So yeah, I love it. It's such like a cheeky test.
I do love it. I mean, and if I'm being honest as well, I don't read privacy policy on every website I go to, or half time when you click that terms and conditions, they are so long and not necessarily even in plain English that it can be a real pain. But yeah, it's an indicator that, you don't quite know what you're getting. We're not going to get free wine. Let's be fair. I don't think you're checking it now. You're not suddenly going to find all these freebies, but there might be some things you don't want to share that it's worth knowing about. So yeah, I don't know if we're necessarily going to get everyone suddenly reading every single bit of documentation that comes with every single form they fill in. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but it's definitely something to think about, isn't it? Deals, sticking with deals. This next one, this is a deal that we shared in our deals of the week. We told people about it ahead of time and we said we think it will go fast, but the reality is I mean, it's just quite understandably people were a little bit upset about this particular offer. What happened here?
Last week, Lidl had a beauty box on sale for £2. As you said, we featured it. Amazing bargain. It had lots of, full size Lidl own beauty products included. So like stuff for your hair. There was face mask, moisturizer, and it was worth about £70 if you bought everything individually. And it was online only, which we also said, and people were waiting. It was on sale, I think, was it from 10 a.m. or something? So there was like a set time. People were like on their computer refreshing, a bit like when you get festival tickets or, you're waiting for like a drop. And it sold out within seconds. And that was it. And people got really upset. I actually got a text from my mum. She must have heard the news somewhere that shortly after these boxes were appearing on eBay, and I had a check today. And there's some on eBay for, $49.99. So it's a kind of an interesting phenomena with these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, with someone like Lidl, you kind of expect it to be a little bit more legit because they've got obviously such a big customer base and they've got that big buying power. I really would have thought there'd be, well, we don't know how many were available. They told the Mirror there were 35,000 people trying to get it. But even so, to go that fast is a bit shocking. But we've seen this thing before. There was a brand called Udi. Udi, you heard of them? They're basically like big hoodies that you wear like as dressing gowns, I think, something like that. I know Zoe and the team was keen to try and get one. They had this promotion. And we didn't feature it in our deals of the week because when you looked into the terms and conditions, there were 5 of these £1 hoodies available in the whole of the UK. So, I mean, that is a ridiculously low amount. So it's, I guess, a word of warning here. When you see these things, just don't change your plans to try and get online to get it because your chance of getting it are really, really, really low. But, if you're there, you could always give it a go. You might get lucky. But it's also reminded me of how some of these deals don't hang around. Now, that one's obviously super quick, but wise not to kind of wait too long when promotions come along if you know you're going to do it. Because another deal that we shared on the podcast, actually just this week, was one from Nectar and eBay, where you could swap £25 worth of points into an eBay voucher of Nectar points into eBay. And if you use them, you got half those points back. And I checked and I was eligible for it. So I was going to, brilliant, I'll do that. I'll get round to it. And when I went yesterday, it'd gone. So either they've used up all the redemptions or they've changed the whatever it is. So I've missed out there. So from one to the extreme, those really sort of short ones, maybe don't worry. But if something does come along, do try and get it. Because if you wait, you might miss out. And that actually brings us on to our next story about waiting and things could miss out. And this is around Tesco Clubcard.
Yeah, just a quick reminder, because, I mean, this is a thing that comes out kind of quarterly when the Tesco Clubcard vouchers are released. But basically, there is around £17 million worth of loyalty vouchers that that will expire on midnight very soon. So it's May the 31st. I've checked mine.
That's a huge amount. 17 million of Clubcard.
Yeah, not me. My £8.50 in vouchers is safe for ages. But there's a real big sum out there. And basically just kind of be aware. There's things that you can do. Check the date if you've got paper vouchers, and you can go into the app and online. Like it's quite easy to check. And we've got the bank holiday weekend coming up, so if you've got things to buy, it's a good time as any.
Yeah, this is with the Clubcard vouchers. They say they're normally, if you get them in the post still, they are sent out quarterly. So you could have some that expire if you did it 2 years ago, the end of May, then the end of August, the end of November. So it's worth checking all those ones that come through. What's worth also just pointing out here is that if they are going to come to expire and you don't want to use it just yet, maybe you're trying to collect more points to transfer it for when you can exchange them for like double value for things like Disney Plus or theme park tickets, whatever it might be. That if you spend some of those vouchers now, not in store, but in the Clubcard exchange, so you could do like a 50p charity donation if you want, or something that, that low volume one, the rest of that voucher will give them back to you as points. Like it almost resets it. So if you can't use it right now, at least do that so you don't lose the full value of those points. And also it's worth saying here as well, you don't have to wait for them in the post as well if you don't want to. This is been going for 6 years now since they did this. You can just go into your online account or the app and create new vouchers as you go along. They're still going to have that 2-year expiry date, but just I think a lot of people might not still be aware that you're doing that. If you're getting them in the post so they're expiring, you probably don't realise you can just get them and use them as you want. Talking about things sitting around not being used, we've got a story here from some more Bank of England figures. What's happening on this one?
Yeah, it's quite interesting it comes out. I mean, a few weeks ago we were talking about people not switching their savings and how you were more likely to change your job than change your bank, basically. So this data, kind of follows on quite nicely from that. So there's £253 billion sat in bank and building society accounts which are paying no interest. Now, that is down from a peak.
Shocking.
I mean, it was higher in October 2022 when there was 272 billion, but it's still a huge amount. And what's interesting here is this is despite interest rates rising. So, we now have the Bank of England base rate that's been at 5.25% since September last year. And the last time it was that high, in 2008, there was there was 33 billion pounds in these 0% accounts. So yeah, it's shocking. Get that money moving.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think having a little bit in your current account, we need that for your general spending. And although there are some accounts like Crew and Starling, which will give you an interest rate on some of that money, which is worth considering if it's your main account. There are so many that give you nothing at all. And you don't need a lot of money in there. Move that money. becleveryourcash.com/savings. We always say, head over there and you will find the top paying accounts on all types, from easy access through to fixes, through to current accounts. Just don't have it sitting around because you will be losing so much money. Now, the last story I want to talk about, and it's been quick on this one, but it's something that I spotted around the Great Escape Festival, which is starting this weekend in Brighton. Lots of new artists come along, and there's been some amount of artists pulling out, and they're pulling out because Barclays is the main sponsor. And the reason they're doing that is because Barclays is one of the banks, and a lot of them will do this, which is investing in arms manufacturers. And specifically here, they're talking about arms manufacturers selling weapons to Israel around the conflict in Palestine. So I'm not going to talk about that, but I thought it was an interesting sort of jumping off point just to talk about just raising that awareness again for people that what is your bank doing with your money? Barclays aren't alone in doing things, investing money. Your money, they're using it to try and make money, and they'll do that in all sorts of ways. Could be oil pipelines, could be arms manufacturers, could be a number of places. But if that is something that you are concerned about, that you don't like the idea of yourself, then there are some alternatives that you can consider. I spoke about this briefly on the podcast on Tuesday when we announced the winners from the British Bank Awards, because there is a best ethical bank provider there. But I thought it might be quite good to sort of highlight some of those places you can go. So the top of the table in terms of ethical providers is Triodos. I don't know if you've come across these guys at all, Amelia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's been the winner the last 3 years, hasn't it? For the most ethical.
Yeah.
The BBA, yeah.
Yeah, so they're really transparent with it, but you do pay a £3 fee every single month for that. And is there a price on your principals? Is £3 something you're willing to pay? And then after that, you can look at any building society, I would say, because they're going to do what they do with your money. Generally, it's in the name. They'll use that money to lend to people looking for mortgages. So your money can't be used elsewhere. It doesn't matter if they've got their own policies in place. It just means it can't go elsewhere for some of those other practices. But you could also look, and this is maybe a bit more of a greyish area, but the likes of Monzo and Starling, they do all right when Ethical Consumer has a look at these sort of different current accounts and which ones are good for you. They kind of do relatively well. Again, as they grow, that might not always be the case. They might do things that the other banks do, because although the challengers, they want to be like the big banks. They want that same amount of money, but they're worth looking at as well. So they could be a decent compromise. But yeah, I just want to quickly end on that as I thought it was interesting. And again, not everyone's always aware of what is happening with their cash. So yeah, you guys make your own decision how you want to do it, but that's something to think about. Well, Amelia, thanks once again for helping us go through all those stories. Packed a lot in once again. Looking forward to you joining us on the podcast on Tuesday as well.
Yeah, can't wait. See you then. And we'll be delving into some questions from the community.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this, however you are consuming the content. My name is Andy Webb. That was Amelia Murray. This is Cash Chats, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.